under the misimpression, the wrong impression. I didn't finish high school. I dropped out of school in 9th grade. Not that they taught a whole bunch of black history anyway. And I went to a Catholic school, so they weren't about teaching no black history. But I believe I went in and read the history book because I couldn't figure out how was it that black and white people were mixing in those days. I forget the era of that. I think it was the early 1900s, before Jim Crow. And black and white folks were living together on the same streets, going to the same colleges, riding on the same buses and stuff. Black people were not sent to the back of the bus until Jim Crow came in. And I didn't understand that. I was like, how does this make sense? You know, we were being lynched in the 30s. Yes, in the 30s and 40s we were. But prior to Jim Crow, we were actually assimilated into white society and considered it equal. For all practical purposes, equal. That's why the Delaney's lived in that big house. They were equal to their white neighbors. And I didn't realize that was part of our history, but it was.
Wow.
So,
interesting.
Yeah. I just tried to assimilate myself into that era and into that character and into those sisters. And I unfortunately never saw the live stage play. But I didn't really need to. I read the script so many times. I mean, you either get it or you don't. You know what I mean? You get the story, you get what the writer is trying to do, you get what they're trying to say, or you don't. If you don't get it, you should pass on the project. I got it. I got it.
Right, and that's probably why
I
you
was
were able
surrounded.
to personify that role.
Yeah, and I was surrounded by such talent on that film. You know, Michael C. Williamson and just everybody. Ruby Dee was in that film. Diane Carroll. I mean, I was surrounded. Audra McDonald. I was surrounded by greatness.
Indeed. And the final question I have to ask, because I know you get this a lot, what was it like working with the great and legendary Richard Pryor? Because I know you did 2 movies with him, Which Way Is Up and Brewster's Millions. And Brewster's Millions was one of my favorites also. So, what was he like on the set?
Well, see, I knew Richard since I was about 11 or 12 years old because my older sister dated him and hung out with him. So Richard was like an older brother to me. I was at Richard's house, sitting at his feet, listening to him tell stories and watching he and Paul Mooney write his comedy material for live stage when I was a kid. So doing those films with him was beyond an honor, and I'll never forget. He came over to my apartment one night. My sister and I were sharing an apartment, and he came over and he said, "I want you to be in my movie." And I said, "What movie?" He said, "First of all, let me tell you, I just watched a screening of your movie, Sparkle." I said, "You did?" He said, "Yes, I did." And he said, "You were fabulous," and, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, "Oh, wow, thank you, Richard." And he said, "I want you to do this film, Which Way Is Up?" And I was like, "Whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. Anything you're working on, of course I'll do it. Are you kidding? Yeah, I'll do it." And that's how it came about. Of course, the director did not want him in the film, which is very ironic. Yeah, Michael Schultz did not want me in the film. He felt that his wife could do a much better job with that role than I. Of course, I have no idea who his wife is or was. I don't believe she ever did anything. But he was very adamant that he would be better in the film than I would be. But that's not what Richard thought. And Richard was calling the shots. So,
and I'm glad he did.
So,
I'm glad he did, because you tore that role up.
That was fun. That was a fun movie. But Richard was great. Richard was, Richard was pure genius. There will never be another one like him. There never was another one before him. I've been to his house. I knew his wives, his different wives. I know his children. I'm friends now with his son. Richard Pryor Jr., very close with him. So I was really close with Richard, and I feel so honored to have them because he was magic. He was a genius. He was a genius. And he was always kind to me. Richard was always good to me. He was a gentleman. He was a gentleman.
Definitely a sweetheart.
He really was.
Saints, don't go anywhere because there's some topics that we're going to talk about, and I definitely want you in as part of it.
Oh, absolutely. I'll stick around.
All right, don't go anywhere because we have a couple of topics that we're going to zone in on. One of them is the hanging of the young man in New Hampshire, Equifax breach, iPhone, and Miss Texas and her response about Trump. So don't go anywhere.
Okay, we're here.
All right, hold on. We have one more phone call from 856 number. She texted me because she had to pick up her daughter, but we wanted to make sure. She said, I have got to give her some kudos talking about you, Miss McKee. So hold on one second. 856, you're on the line? Yeah, she's a sweetheart. Nisha, you're on the line. Hey, girl.
Hi. I'm so excited. Look, I was lost for words for a second. Like, oh, my God, that's her.
You're listening to me in living color with my big mouth.
Oh my gosh, you said so many things. Like when you talked about how the things that Alicia Keys, what she's doing now, you were doing it then. So you paved a way for everyone, and how you were, how you were in a box, and people tried to limit you because you could do so many different things.
Yeah, they did.
So I know that. Yeah. So how did you fight that? How were you able to express yourself and to you're still here, you're still standing? How'd you do it?
Well, I couldn't, when you're young, first of all, when you're young, you're very resilient. And I started out very young. So you have to figure I was, like 21 years old when I did Sparkle. That's a baby. So very little can deter you at those young ages. Nobody's going to tell you you can't do this and you can't do that, because I've had people tell me you'll never work again in this town, in Hollywood. I was like, you watch me. And these were big people. These were big people, but I wasn't afraid because I had come from the streets in Detroit, and I had looked down the barrel of loaded guns. So I wasn't going to have no white people in Hollywood tell me what I could and couldn't do. I wasn't scared of them. I was like, you don't own the world. What are you, the king of the world? And of course I had a lot of those experiences where people wanted to, I did have the unfortunate experiences of those casting couches where people wanted me to sleep with them to get ahead. And I was like, I got talent, buddy. I can sit at a keyboard and play a song that I wrote. I don't have to sleep with you and suck your dick to get ahead. I'm sorry.
I love this. I love her.
And it's true. It's true.
Yeah. She's breaking it down.
It's true. It's true.
Yes.
But I struggled. I beat the pavement. I had little jobs. I worked at a 7-Eleven, as a cashier. I worked at a movie theater selling popcorn. I beat the pavement. You name it, I tried to do it to get ahead. I signed with a modeling agency, never got a single job. I just did whatever I could do to survive and not have to go back to my parents' house in Detroit. And when you're young like that, you are resilient, so people can't stop you. Your talent rises. Now it's a little bit different. It's kind of hard to put into words, but nowadays, young people, I feel for them. I feel sorry for them in a way, because it isn't just about talent nowadays. It's about who's got the biggest butt, who can do the most rips, the most Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey rips. It's about young white girls who can do those rips almost as well as black girls, or as well as black girls, because they've copied us. So the competition, the whole game has changed. And they're starting them out so young that, it's kind of hard to compete with a 13-year-old.
Right.
So it's hard. That's why I cautioned that little girl, Leah, that called in about that it wasn't going to be easy. You know, people look at it and think it's going to be easy. It's not easy. But when you're the age that I was when I started back in that day, I was young enough to be resilient, young enough to take the rejection, and smart enough, street smart enough to say no to, you know, people that wanted to take advantage of me and tell me that they would help me and give me a break and put me in this and put me in that and give me this job and give me that job. And I knew better. I was like, buddy, my father ran numbers in Detroit. You don't have no game you can run
a game on the wrong person.
Yeah, you're trying to run a game on the wrong girl, brother. So I just kept going. And God kept blessing me, and I kept working. Sometimes 2 years would go by before I would get a film.
Wow.
And then, lo and
that
behold,
brings me to my other question.
What? How did I survive?
No, not how you survived. You also mentioned being, you didn't say the exact word empathetic, but having to go into yourself and just take time for yourself after all the rejections. How do you deal with the rejections and everything else now and, you know, being empathetic and having to take that time? How do you know it's time to just shut down and, you know, rejuvenate and come back?
Well, it's harder now because I'm older. I don't have that resiliency that I had when I was young. But what I've always had that people can't take from you if you have it, if God gave it to you as a natural gift, which he did to me, is like when I couldn't get an acting job for 2 years, I would go sit at my keyboard and write 10 new songs. And they were good. I'm a good writer. I am a solid writer. Then when I got in my 40s and realized that I was not going to, the time had passed for me to say, oh, well, okay, maybe there's a chance that I'm going to be a superstar now with acting. Okay, that time, that window of opportunity had passed. I was in my mid-40s, and that's when I told my agent, don't call me anymore. I fired him. And I said, don't call me anymore. Oh, yeah, he called me to be the housekeeper to Felicia Rashad in some project.
Wow.
And when he called me with that, I was like, you know what? These people don't respect. They don't have any respect. So I decided to start writing screenplays along with my music, which I've done. And I have them, and I'm looking for funding. I want to direct them. Maybe I haven't gotten funding to this point because people don't want to take a chance on me directing, although they'll take a chance on a young white girl straight out of film school and let her direct.
Right.
So you see, there's a double standard. It's the same double standard in the industry as there is in corporate business and in other areas of our social lives, of our community. Black folks are not given the same opportunities as white folks. But it's changing. Right. It is changing. When the hip-hop kids came in, they changed a lot for us. I consider them our warriors. Mm-hmm. I consider them the young black men, and now they're not so young. A lot of them, like Cube and Russell Simmons and those guys, but they came in as our warriors. They did not care what white people said or did.
They sure didn't.
They didn't. They built their own empires, and they were like, "This is ours. This is our music. You can't take this from us. You can talk all you want about that it's transitory and that it's not going to last. It is going to last because this is derivative of our real-life experiences out there in the streets," which it is. And they were right. It's not only did it last, but now all the white girls are trying to sing like the black girls, and all the white guys are trying to act like the black hip-hop guys.
You're right.
So, but, that goes back to bustles. In the days in the 1800s when white women were wearing bustles, it's because they wanted bigger asses. It's true.
I love this girl.
It's true,
It's absolutely
true.
They had these little flat white girl asses, and they wanted asses like black women, the black women that worked for them as slaves. So they started wearing bustles, and bustles became a trend.
Right.
But that's where it was derived from.
Wow. And the knowledge that you get when you talk to someone that's been in the industry is absolutely amazing because I know one time we had Curtis Blow on and James D. Train Williams, and they broke down the same knowledge